Welcome, viewers. The patch for Stalker 2, the version 1.5 patch, is out. I've already downloaded it. Haven't played it yet. I'm going to. But I wanted to talk about a change and why it matters. One of the calibers has been addressed in the game, and that is 7.62 by 39, which is the caliber that's used in the AK-47 and the AKM and I think the AK-103, though the AK-103 might not be in the game, and also the SKS carbine. So let me scroll down. So this is under balance. So it says here, I don't know if I can blow that up, if I have a way to zoom that at all. I don't see a way to zoom it. Anyway, so it says reworked ammo for machine guns and sniper rifles. Replaced 7.62 by 39 mm ammo with 7.62 by 54 mm ammo. I'm not sure what... Oh, mm I guess means millimeters. Usually you see mm in lowercase, and here it's... And you see it immediately following the number, the last number in the cartridge, usually the cartridge length. But here there's a space, and then it's in two capital M's. So it made me think it was like a type of that ammo, but it's saying millimeters. So why does it matter that this ammo, the 7.62 by 39 millimeter ammo, has been replaced by 7.62 by 54 millimeter ammo? Well, I got a unique gun called the Glutton, and right now it's the only, or at least before version 1.5, it was the only weapon that I had found that would digest 7.62 by 39 millimeter ammo, even though 7.62 by 39 millimeter ammo is probably more common than 5.45 by 39 millimeter, which is what feeds the AK-74, which is the common AK that's in Stalker 2. So, however, I'm not sure how much 7.62 by 39 millimeter is used in Ukraine these days. Possibly not that much, because Russia, and I guess by extension Ukraine, switched over to the AK-74. Probably in the... Although there's a 74 designation there, maybe it took time to field the new rifle, so maybe they switched over in the late 70s or early 80s, is my guess. So now 5.45 millimeter is more like the round that is fired from the M16, AR-15, M4, HK-416, which is 5.56 millimeter NATO. And so it's a less beefy round than the 7.62 by 39. However, both 5.56 millimeter and 5.45 millimeter, though they're smaller rounds, because of having less mass, the roughly same powder charge, I guess. I say roughly, and I mean probably very roughly, same powder charge, is able to propel the round at a higher speed, which means also a flatter trajectory, which means the bullet doesn't drop so much over distance. And that's one of the things about the 7.62 by 39 is that it tends to drop quite a bit over distance, so that you have that rear sight that allows you to adjust for distance like lots of more old-fashioned rifles. So anyway, the machine gun that I got called the Glutton. Let me see if I could bring that up here. If there's a picture of it somewhere. Stalker 2 Glutton. Is there a picture? Here we go. So this is from the Stalker 2 wiki, or here's maybe a better picture. So yeah, right here. So this is the PK machine gun, not the RPK, and not the RPK 74. Anything with a 74 designation is probably going to fire 5.45 by 39 millimeter. So the Glutton would be digesting the same ammo that you'd be using for your AK, which wouldn't be ideal because you probably need that ammo for your AK in Stalker 2. So, but here they've got it chambered in Stalker 2 before version 1.5. They had it chambered for 7.62 by 39 millimeter, but this machine gun doesn't digest 7.62 by 39 millimeter. It digests 7.62 by 54 millimeter. So this is a hard-hitting machine gun, belt-fed machine gun, similar to the FN GPMG, the M240 Bravo, the M60 machine gun. You know, it's firing a round on par with those machine guns. So anyway, I'll talk more about that round as we go on. But this, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure this is the PK machine gun. Like if I go here and look at it, that's the same machine gun, right? I mean, if you look at the rear stock, and yeah, there's the stock. So that's the PK. That's not the RPK. Here's the RPK. That's the RPK. The RPK looks like an AK with a slightly different or somewhat different rear shoulder stock. Usually it's fed by a drum or a larger capacity magazine. It usually has a longer barrel and it's mounted with a bipod. So this would be the RPK, which would be, as you can tell by the magazine, fed by 7.62 by 39 millimeter, which is, so the RPK, based on the ammo that it's digesting in Stalker 2 version 1.4, should look like this, but it doesn't. Now, if you are going to call it the RPK 74, or the RPK 74, putting the emphasis on 74, then here's the RPK 74. It should look like this, and you could tell the magazine is different. It's more vertical, less curved. because because of how the rounds are, the magazine basically needs to be more vertical. That's kind of one of the ways you can identify an AK that's fed by that intermediate assault rifle cartridge is the magazines are more vertical, less curved. So both AKs that are chambered in 5.45 millimeter and AKs that are chambered in 5.56 millimeter, because the Russians did export AKs that would fire 5.56 millimeter, and other manufacturers who aren't Russian have been making AKs in 5.56 millimeter in order to market them to NATO countries who are familiar with the AK but who want to use NATO ammo, and I guess for the American civilian market where where AKs have caught on, but since Biden banned the importation of Russian ammo, it's harder to get Russian ammo like 7.62 by 39, especially 5.45 millimeter, and possibly 7.62 by 54 millimeter. So harder to get any ammo manufactured in Russia because of bans that I guess Biden put in place for who knows what reason. We're supposed to be the land of the free, but we can't buy, what we want. So, but that's Democrats for you. So if Stalker 2's RPK-74 was really an RPK-74, it should look like this. But it doesn't. It looks like the PK machine gun. So, if it's the PK machine gun, it should be firing 7.62 by 54 millimeter, and it looks like that's what the devs have done to correct it in version 1.5. Now, why does this matter? Or why should it matter? Because there's still a question as to whether it's properly simulated in the game, at least balance-wise. Personally, I hate arcadey, gamey balance. My personal, when it comes to firearm ballistics, my personal preference is to slap real-world performance figures on guns and on calibers, and then let it play out from there. So that what should happen in most games is, even if you get hit by 22 long rifle in the head, it could be fatal. Most bullets, if they hit in the right place, they can be fatal, and that's how it should be in a game. Now, in Stalker 2, both the human enemy AI and also the mutants are described as tanky. They take lots of rounds, so that... And I guess that's to balance out the player being able to take lots of rounds. Because if they were to realistically simulate real-world ballistics in the game, you would probably have to hit save every few steps in the game. every time there was a firefight ended and you might get into another firefight, you would need to hit save, because the very first moments of the firefight could be deadly. You could get hit by one bullet and be out of it. So, and that would be more like a game like Rainbow Six One or Rogue Spear on the PC. It would be pretty punishing. And but I mean, some players like it like that, which is why Stalker Anomaly is popular. I think Stalker Anomaly is more like that. And but in a game like that, you not only have to have really good hand-eye coordination, but you've also got to have a high frame rate and probably a high refresh rate on your display, so that you can both react and put rounds on the enemy before they put rounds on you. But with the cover that's available in Stalker 2 in the open field, which sometimes isn't much at all, if you suddenly face 3 bad guys who spawn in at 100 meters away, or maybe 150 meters, where are you going to take cover? You know, so you might drop the first one, maybe the second one, but then the third one might put those rounds on you that drop you quickly in accordance with realism. So, you know, I guess they've made a design decision at GSC Game World to make the enemies more tanky and the mutants more tanky, to explain why you are able to endure more gunshots hitting you without dying. So anyway, back to why it's important that they made this caliber change. Is there's a video here by Kozak Caliber. I don't know if that's like Cossack Caliber, but it's Kozak, no space, Kaliber. That's a channel on YouTube. And so anyway, they're showing the difference between 7.62 by 39 versus 7.62 by 54 Russian. Now, when I was a teenager, I went to a range, firing range, after it was closed, and found this casing for the 7.62 by 54, and it's a rimmed case, which is kind of strange for a center fire rifle, at least in more modern times. Maybe it was something more common on older rifles. But yeah, I was impressed by what a large case it was. Now, here's the comparison of the two. So there's 7.62 by 39 millimeter. Some have almost described, or maybe outright described, the AK-47 or the AKM as basically a submachine gun, like the intention behind its design was as a submachine gun, because there's not a whole lot of powder behind this big bullet. So you do wind up with an easy effective range of about 200 meters. But unlike 5.56, where your effective range, or easy effective range, is more like 300 meters, yeah, so it winds up seeming to some like the AK-47 or AKM is more like a submachine gun. But make no mistake, 7.62 by 39 millimeter is, is still a big enough round that it requires a pretty big, hefty magazine, especially when compared to an M16 magazine, to contain it in capacities of 30 rounds at a time. So in your hand, it's not really that small. However, 7.62 by 54 millimeter is a big honkin' round. And this round is used in the Mosin-Nagant, the bolt-action rifle from the movie Enemy at the Gates that he uses to good effect as a sniper. It's used in the SVD Dragunov. Is it used in the PSL? I think it might be used in the PSL, which is kind of like a poser type SVD rifle. And it's used in the PK machine gun that I pictured. So the PK machine gun is a machine gun that is basically firing sniper rifle, or shall we say designated marksman rifle rounds in full automatic. So the PK machine gun is a mightily punishing belt-fed machine gun. And that's why it matters that they've made this correction from 7.62 by 39 to 7.62 by 54. Because if you can put a whole burst of 7.62 by 54 onto a target, you're essentially landing like a burst of sniper rifle rounds on someone. Now, most of these larger, lengthier cartridge 7.62 rounds, whether they're Russian or NATO, if you land a torso hit on a human being with one of these, it's probably going to do a number on them. As it is, 7.62 by 39 is known to, in some ways, be harder hitting than 5.45 millimeter or 5.56 millimeter because of the mass of its bullet. But this thing hits you, and like when you watch like Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers, and you see the Nazis with their Kar 98K or Carabiner 98K rifles, and they're firing a single round at American troops, and you see an American troop running along, and he gets hit in the torso by one round of 7.92 by, I think it's 57, could be wrong, and they just drop like a sack of potatoes. It's because that's how devastating, this round can be, or a round of this class can be. I think the same round used in the Carabiner 98K may have been used in the MG42 machine gun, which is the one I think they call the buzzsaw, but the one that they're mowing down American troops, and not just Americans, because there were other forces participating in the amphibious landings on D-Day at Normandy. But Yeah, that's the MG42 is the machine gun they're using. So that's like another machine gun where they're basically firing sniper rifle class ammunition in full automatic at enemy troops. So, what weapons would we want to see in Stalker 2 that would digest 7.62 by 39 millimeter? Well, so possibly the SKS carbine, but understand that these should all be weapons that you might see someone using in Ukraine even today, even though I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if Stalker and Stalker 2 are set, at what year are they set? Are they set in the future? I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I have to assume by the technology that they're using that they're set in the future, because they have that Gauss rifle or plasma rifle or whatever. That's something we don't have. So if it's not a weapon that's being used in Ukraine today, then it's questionable whether it might be found in the Stalker, in the zone, in Stalker 2. So then maybe not this rifle then. So another one would of course be the AK-47 or AK or AKM, and there are also AK-100 models that still fire 7.62 by 39 millimeter, but a belt-fed machine gun in 7.62 by 39. An older one would be the RPD. Here it's got like a box type. It looks like a drum magazine, but I believe it's a box magazine. I could be wrong. Anyway, this is the RPD, which I guess there are files in the game that suggest that maybe the RPD was going to be in the game, and maybe it still will. I don't know. But then there's the question, is the RPD even being used in Ukraine right now? Because it would be firing 7.62 by 39 millimeter, and I'm not sure how much Ukraine is using that caliber. So, and then back to the RPK. This would be the RPK in 7.62 by 39 millimeter. So it's basically, the RPK is basically an assault rifle with a longer barrel, a reinforced trunnion, so it can handle the demand of more sustained automatic weapons fire, and then it's got a bipod. Basically, that's what it is. It's just a souped-up AK-47 or AKM, basically. But that would be a weapon we might see in 7.62 by 39. But I'm thinking the devs are just dumping 7.62 by 39 millimeter as a caliber in Stalker 2, possibly because maybe it's not getting used that much in Ukraine even today. So why would you think it would be getting used in the future in Stalker 2? So, so for switching to 7.62 by 54, we now have the Mosin-Nagant in Stalker 2, and I believe that the Mosin-Nagant has been fielded. I'm not sure if the Ukrainians have been using it, but in the early, I think it was in 2022, we were seeing pictures where Russians were using the Mosin-Nagant again. So this fires 7.62 by 54. If you put a scope on it, if it was the model that could take a scope, then you would have your enemy at the gates rifle here. So the reason that I think that this is a good inclusion for Stalker 2 is that this is I guess it's okay to say, a very old, proven design that you might find in Grandpa's attic, and it's a good entry-level weapon for those who like a more sniper-type gameplay, who they want to be able to put someone down with one shot, even if they don't have a scope for the rifle, and they're willing to deal with the time it takes to rack the bolt to load the next round, and they're willing to deal with the small internal magazine capacity because they like sniper type gameplay. So it's a good entry-level weapon. I think it's very appropriate to include it in the game. And of course we already have the SVD in Stalker 2, and this fires the same round, and 7.62 by 54. So we have a larger magazine capacity. I think that it's larger than the Mosin-Nagant's internal magazine. And it's semi-automatic, so you can get a quicker second shot than the Mosin-Nagant. And it's more suited to accessorization, so as long as you either have the rail adapter, or you have a scope that's already got its own rail attachment, you can mount a variety of scopes and optics and red dots and all sorts of things on there. And on top of that, the SVD has always looked just very sinister. It has a very, I don't know if you want to call it reptilian look to it. It just looks devilish, and for that reason, it's just such a cool looking rifle. And that's why it's so, or one reason why it's so hard to purchase anything that looks like that in the US, because it's so costly, is because it's in high demand, I think. And there's just not that many to go around. Of course, now with 7.62 by 54 Russian ammo being banned from importation, it makes it harder to fund feeding one of these rifles. Fortunately, it's a rifle that recoils enough that you're not going to want to fire too many rounds of this. And then the same goes for the Mosin-Nagant. It gives you a pretty good whack in the shoulder. At least that's the complaint of some people. I haven't actually fired either one of these rifles. I do own some ammo for them, for the potential that I might get my hands on at least a Mosin-Nagant one day. They're affordable enough. I could get one, but I even in real life, I'm not as much of the sniper gameplay philosophy because I don't think I really have easy access to any long range marksmanship ranges. So it would be frustrating to fire something that whacks you that hard at a target that's only 100 meters away. So, and then that brings us back to the PK. So that's the reason why it's important that they corrected the ammo type for the PK machine gun in Stalker 2. I can go back. So they say that they fixed sniper rifles like the SVD M-2, the SVU MK-S3, and the M701 Super. They don't use a light steel core ammo now without a weapon upgrade. Only supersonic and armor piercing ammo, which excuse me, most rifle calibers already break the sound barrier. So I don't know what they're trying to say by supersonic. Like, and even lots of pistol calibers break the sound barrier. Like, one of the few calibers that doesn't break the sound barrier coming out of most pistols and submachine guns is 45 ACP. It is subsonic normally, so that's why it's a good round to suppress, or at least it was considered to be in Vietnam, or it could have been that was because, you know, the 1911 was just the U.S. pistol for such a long time. So it says that PKP machine guns, I think that's, you know, like maybe a modernized version of the PK. The Mark 1 EMR and 3-line rifle can use light steel core ammo by default. Supersonic ammo now deals way less damage to weapon durability, making it more useful. I don't understand what they're calling supersonic ammo, unless that's the way they're describing, like, plus P or plus P plus ammo. They're just trying to say that it's ammo that has greater chamber pressures, maybe, than normal ammo, because all of these rifle rounds are gonna be supersonic. That's one complaint I've got about Stalker 2, is that their people don't really seem to understand how weapons work. I mean, they might have access to, you know, currently serving soldiers and combat veterans, but I'm not sure if the knowledge of those people they can consult with is translating very well to the developers themselves, you know? Because with the weapon upgrades, sometimes it really doesn't seem that they understand at all how different weapon upgrades would even work, or what might be better in an weapon upgrade versus another thing. Like sometimes when I'm going through the weapon upgrades, it almost feels like I'm dealing with a fantasy game. You know, like these are just basically magical enhancements to the weapon, because the rationale behind the upgrades just doesn't make any sense from a realistic standpoint. And like, that's really one of my few complaints about Stalker 2, and that's just coming from someone who knows a little bit about guns. You know, so, and developers get aggravated with so-called gun nuts like me, you know. But like, if you're making a game like this, you've got to get these details right. However, with the potential for mods being integrated through the Steam Workshop and through the game now with patch version 1.5, you know, the gun nuts like me, we can correct these things, no problem, you know, and so that, you know, maybe the devs don't really have to get those sorts of things right. However, when the interface works like this, I'm not sure how easily such things will be able to be modded. We'll have to see, you know. I guess anything's possible when you're talking about mods. In fact, they might even like go for a whole completely different user interface for upgrades. I don't know. We'll have to see. Also, they increased armor penetration for the Grom S15, which I think uses 9x39 millimeter. Because recently, I think it was GG Rewind, I think is the name of the account on YouTube, GG Rewind, was showing how 9x39 like doesn't even seem to be able to penetrate a car door. It's kind of crazy. And or maybe it was just a sheet metal door on a building, I forget. But they were able to show how 5.56 would penetrate it, but then 9.39, which is at least one type of 9.9 by 39, is designed to penetrate armor. So their 9 by 39 was behaving more like a 9mm NATO, where it might be stopped by sheet metal. Even though 9mm NATO is going to pass through car doors, you know, so anyway, so it looks like they fixed that, so that's a good thing, so that now the AS Lavina, or in other words the AS Val is the name of the real weapon, and the VSS Ventores, or however it's pronounced, and the Grom, I thought it was like Grom S14, but there's a Grom S15, which is basically the OTS-14 Groza, chambered in 9x39 millimeter, which, I mean, maybe, I guess there's a variant of it that fires 9x39, but that's what they chose to go with. I personally probably would have gone for the Groza in 5.45 millimeter, but anyway. Anyway, so now those weapons and that ammo should penetrate materials better. Then finally down here again it says reworked and replaced 7.62 ammo across the map. So I don't know. I don't know if that means all 7.62 by 39 millimeter ammo that you find across the map will now be 7.62 by 54 millimeter instead, or whether they've just removed it from like a loot table, or they've maybe replaced it with some other ammos sometimes. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds like they're bringing the loot spawns or the loot locations in compliance with their change from 7.62 by 39 to 7.62 by 54. So anyway, this has been long-winded, but I wanted to show why this change is important if accurately simulated, and why it should be important, and why it should be changed. So this is a change that was very much needed. Should we say needed? Maybe a better word is warranted, or a change that was welcome. It certainly fixes some of the confusion between the weapons presented in the game and the ammunition that it digests. And that's one thing that's a little strange about GSC Game World's weapons when it comes to Russian weapons. Like, they've made mistakes with the Russian weapons, and maybe that's reflective by what they see in Ukraine in these Russian weapon models. But like the APS Stechkin only fires in 3-round burst in the game. That's just wrong, man. I'm not even sure the APS Stechkin has a 3-round burst mode. I seem to remember that it doesn't. So it's like they've taken the 2 firing modes that the pistol should have, which you can buy this as a BB gun, by the way, and then you can get the stock either for the real pistol, or I think maybe for an airsoft version, and it may attach to the BB gun. But I haven't been able to find an airsoft version of the APS Stechkin, and I think if I yes, I'm 18. I think if I search for APS Stechkin, yeah, here you can buy the stock, but I'm not seeing the pistol for sale at all. So this is not, unfortunately, not a pistol that's common in the US, and that's probably because of the full auto firing mode. So, but it's a good looking pistol, you know, for an older pistol. And it it fires the 9x18 Makarov round that is fired by Skiff's pistol. But its firing modes are, does it say here? It doesn't say here, but let me see if it says in the design. It's a straight blowback, select fire, magazine fed machine pistol. So the 3-position lever, when pointed forward in the PR or safe position, decocks and locks the hammer. When pointed downwards to the OD or single shot position, the safety lever deactivates the auto sear and rate reducer to allow semi-automatic fire. Finally, the rearmost AVT or AUT, like automatic position, puts the APS in fully automatic mode. So this pistol has single or semi-automatic, one shot every time you pull the trigger, or full automatic fire in a pistol. And that's kind of why you might want to have the stock on it, but it's possible to fire it without the stock in full automatic. So that was one reason I wanted this pistol in Stalker 2, was to have a full automatic pistol that maybe wouldn't wouldn't weigh as much as another option. But in Stalker 2, the APS only fires in 3-round burst, which is kind of crazy. Like, who wants a pistol that doesn't allow you to fire semi-automatic? So they've kind of insulted this Russian pistol that way. And then they made another error, in my opinion, on the B-Zone submachine gun, the PP-19 B-Zone. And they chambered it, which it can, yes, it can take 9x19 NATO, you know, but I think it's more commonly chambered in 9x18 Makarov. Maybe the Russians have started chambering it, which I'm not sure how much it's even being fielded anymore. I think they decided to go with the Vityaz instead, using stick magazines. But anyway, I had all this 9x18 Makarov ammo, or PST ammo, in Stalker 2, and so I was salivating to get my hands on the B-Zone submachine gun so I could burn through all that ammo in full auto with this helical magazine. Because see, it's got this magazine where the rounds are kind of like spiraled like this inside the magazine. And how many does it hold? Was it 50? Feed system, 64 round helical magazine, or a 53 round in 9x18 NATO. So I was looking forward to burning through all this Makarov ammo, and then I find out it's chambered in 9x19 millimeter NATO. Well, I've already got an MP5 with a drum magazine, and the MP5 is a more stable shooting platform because it's a delayed roller system. And the PP-19 is just straight blowback, which means it recoils more. So why would I stop using the MP5 to fire the same round in the B-Zone? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If this was chambered in 9x18 Makarov, then it would make sense, because the other submachine gun, which is like kind of looks more like a machine pistol in its size, in the game that uses 9x18 Makarov, I think it has like a maximum of a 30 round magazine, but it you know, this one has greater capacity than that one. And I think it can be accessorized better. I think it has a longer barrel. You know, so there are advantages to this over that other one. I forgot the name of that other one. I've stopped using it lately since getting the Stechkin pistol in the game. So these are some of the weird design decisions that GSC Game World has made about the Russian weapons in the game. You know, maybe they'll fix them. Maybe they're not that important to them. Maybe modders will fix them instead. But what we've seen is that GSC Game World did fix the problem with the wrong caliber being used in the PK machine gun. So bravo to GSC Game World for that. And hopefully it'll make a difference in your gameplay if you've got the PK or the Glutton machine gun. I personally found the Glutton machine gun to be very heavy and to recoil a lot, and I hadn't really put much into upgrades for it, so that I didn't really care to use it that much. Now, later on, maybe in Pripyat, I might want it when I'm facing like fully geared monolith or something. But right now, I kind of dig my suppressed AK-74 and my suppressed Tavor. I think it's called the Lullaby. It's a unique weapon. And so that's what I'm using. I'm kind of sticking with assault rifles. It's what I was trained on in the Army, and I find it to be flexible. You can use it up close, and you can use it at some distance. Especially when the threats spawn at 100 meters, which they say it's 100 meters. And I don't I don't know if they're spawning and then I'm moving away, but there are times when I'm seeing people that are far enough away in the game that they appear to be more like 300 meters away. So I don't know if objects appear more distant than they really are, or if they're calling something that's really 300 meters 100 meters, because what's kind of crazy in a game is that distances, you have to measure distances in relation to the objects in the game, and also to the speed with which the character can traverse a distance in a given movement mode. For example, if your character has a jogging movement mode, then you should take what is the average jogging speed of a grown adult, man. And then you should find out at that speed how long it would take them to traverse 100 meters. Then you should compare that to how long it takes your character in-game to traverse 100 meters while jogging. And I think that would be unencumbered, right? Because the average jogging speed of an adult man is going to be unencumbered. And if you find out that it takes longer than it should, then it's probably not really 100 meters in game. It's probably longer than that. I don't know how the Unreal Engine deals with distance like that, but something wacky has resulted from widescreen displays where, from what I've seen, you can never truly get a field of view that matches what a human being sees at every distance. The best you can get is to almost focus your field of view on how things should appear at a certain distance, but as you move away from that distance, either farther or closer, it's going to get distorted. Like either they're going to appear farther away than they should, or they're going to appear closer than they should. It's a problem. The game that I remember where they got it right was the very first America's Army, because in the very first America's Army, your front sight post on your M16 was the very width of the man-sized target on the qualification range at 300 meters. And from what I remember of the qualification range, that is how large a human-sized target should appear at 300 meters. The problem that can arise is that if you adjust for that, then maybe you'll lose peripheral vision in the game. You know? So it's a hard thing to adjust for, and I'm not sure that any game can offer a field of view setting that looks realistic at all distances because of widescreen displays. Maybe if games were designed for curved displays, where the display, maintains the same distance to your eyeball, even on the left and the right, and if the game was able to graphically accommodate that sort of display, then maybe you might be able to have a field of view that looked correct at all distances. But I think with a flat widescreen display, I'm not sure it's possible. Anyway, so I've gone on. I'm just glad that GSC Game World made this fix, and because it was something that really kind of disturbed me a little bit, anyway, I'm glad they made the fix, and in my mind, that's why it's important that they did. That's why the fix matters.